Monday Night Raw this week started with an absolute car crash. Chairs thrown all over the place, bodies flying everywhere, but most importantly, Samoa Joe back in a wrestling ring having a great old time. Please be sure to leave a like because we're about to jump in to this week's Raw review. Raw opened with an attack already in action. Asuka was under the effect of Sasha Banks and Bayley double teaming her, while Samoa Joe tried to get referees and officials out to separate the two. He of course was standing in the ring for the contract signing, ready to compare, because as we know Renee Young is not currently available. Things in the crowd looked very different, the vast majority of stars now wearing masks, some of which were clearly personal and some of which were Raw or SmackDown branded, probably supplied by the company upon request. To my knowledge, this is the first time that the company have actually supplied masks, so well done WWE. Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre would both come down to the ring, and Dolph Ziggler on a microphone would really slow down the whole process. Very effective given that we started so fast paced, slowed down and then picked up again at the end. Ziggler in a soft cadence is something that I'm not particularly comfortable with, and that adds a lot to the moment. Asuka would eventually intervene with a bit of cold fury before Sasha Banks would rile her up, resulting in a bit of a beatdown. The faces stood tall, and these two teams will meet again later in the night for the main event. Andrade and Garza were in the back being told off by Zelina Vega, as you might expect for some of their recent exploits. They are interrupted by the Big Show, who tells them that he is pulling rank and will be coming out to challenge Randy Orton in the next segment instead of the match that is planned. I don't know what's happened there, but if you recall, Big Show is the current GM of Raw and as such does get to make all the decisions. The Big Show does come down, calls out Randy Orton, but Randy Orton is not involved in this segment at all and in fact does not feature on this Raw at all. Instead, Andrade and Garza come out, try and pick a fight, but they are themselves interrupted also by Ric Flair, who is in fact still at the Performance Center despite everything going on with COVID-19. They socially distance him by keeping him well up the ramp, away from everyone, but seriously, Rick, please think of your health. The end result here is that later in the night, we will see the Big Show taking on Andrade and Garza in a handicap match. However, those two men do have a match beforehand. They are challenging the Viking Raiders. As opening matches go, this was very, very good. There was a lot of athleticism on display, very fast-paced offense. I like it when a match has a high tempo because it shows that familiarity and chemistry, and this is something that these four men do seem to have despite not working together very much. What I will say is that Garza and Andrade, who did pick up the win here, sorely needed it. I think it's very telling that Andrade has taken the losses on that team for a long time, meanwhile Garza has been picking up the wins. There is a wonderful moment where Garza does a super kick in half of his pants. That's talent right there. What I will say is that now that the Street Profits are not involved with the Viking Raiders, or at least weren't involved this week, I do kind of miss the anything you can do, we can do better segments. I don't know how it happened, but well done WWE, you got me. Ruby Riott is backstage doing backstage things when she is interrupted in her backstage things by the Iconics, who come across to bully? I just want to say bully. Ruby Riott challenges one member of the Iconics to a match later in the night, does the Iconic pose, which is how we know she's a good guy now, just so we're clear. When you do the Iconic pose, you're a good guy unless you are the Iconics. She will face Peyton Royce later in the night. My hope here is that they get more than the 3 or 4 minutes that the women's division has been getting outside of the title picture for months now. The next match of the night is Akira Tozawa versus R-Truth. I don't feel that I can legitimately call this a match. There are a couple of roll-ups over the course of a couple of seconds, maybe a minute and a half, and then R-Truth wins back the 24/7 championship with a roll-up. They made a big deal out of the fact he is a 37-time 24/7 champion. I mean, I love R-Truth, but can we get somebody new in this division? Because clearly, the WWE are following instructions from the USA Network to get the 24/7 championship back on TV and use it as much as possible. But ninjas? Always R-Truth? I know you don't have that deep a division outside of it, but come on, man. Seth Rollins comes down to the ring to straddle the first and second hours. He is with Buddy Murphy, but not with Austin Theory. There is a loud "You suck" chant from the crowd, who, as Seth brings the microphone to his mouth, quietens down. You will not see that when a normal crowd returns, I promise you. A normal crowd will be shouting "what" at the top of their voice, and honestly, as much as I hated it at the time, I do kind of miss it now. Seth is supposedly asking for forgiveness, but in reality he just wants Rey Mysterio to accept his role as a sacrifice for the good of Monday Night Raw. You always sacrifice the GOAT, right? That's not even a good joke, but I'm keeping it in. Seth and Buddy are challenged by Black and Humberto Carillo because Rey and Dominic Mysterio are not on site at the moment. They are on the big screen once again. So they didn't last very long in the actual performance center, did they? Black and Carillo versus Rollins and Murphy is exactly as good as you expect it to be. I am yet to be bored of these four men, and this I feel is a much better way to get Humberto Carillo over than what has been happening since he first debuted on Raw. Because even though he does take the pin here, he does get to show a lot of offense. In addition, Black and Murphy get to renew acquaintances, which is always a joy to watch. Seth Rollins has a moment where he's rolling Humberto Carillo into a pin attempt and does the old school Seth Rollins heel laugh, and my heart leapt with joy in that moment. Eventually, after a very fast-paced technical section, Seth Rollins rolls out of a pin cover attempt into a stomp and wins the match for his team. Afterwards, he attempts to blind Carillo in the same way you would expect, as it's become his trademark at this point, but he's interrupted from doing so by Aleister Black, because Buddy Murphy is apparently just letting this happen. It's going to be a stairs match at Extreme Rules, isn't it? It's going to be a stairs match. The WWE air another tribute to The Undertaker on Monday Night Raw, a couple of minutes taken up that they don't have to fill with any more match time or any backstage segments that were filmed that were not usable in the end. Well, we had a full show on SmackDown dedicated to The Undertaker, so much so that I didn't even do a review because there was no point, and yet we are still doing this. I understand The Undertaker is a big deal. Maybe The Last Ride can be your tribute show, because at the moment we have about 9 hours of content dedicated to The Undertaker retiring, and I've got to be honest, I'm not 100% sure he actually has. Hell of a hype package though, music is fantastic. I'm still enjoying them, which sort of undermines my whole point. Ruby Riott and Peyton Royce is up next. Unfortunately, it does only last a handful of minutes, which I feel is a real shame because both these women have a lot of talent and could do with more time to shine. Billie Kay is her usual nuisance on the outside that prevents Ruby from really getting into her rhythm, and Peyton Royce wins with a beautiful corkscrew brainbuster, which definitely looks like it connects even though I'm confident it didn't. That was a good moment for all involved. Hopefully this naturally leads more into the storyline, which does feature Ruby Riott reconnecting with Liv Morgan. The Iconics are going to be the perfect foil for that. It's just a shame that Liv Morgan wasn't there this week. The lead-in for the third hour is the handicap match between Garza and Andrade against The Big Show, showing a lot of faith in The Big Show to keep an audience into the third hour, which, to be fair, an older name going into the third hour where people would usually send the young ones to sleep is probably a good call. I can't blame them for that. The match itself, again, relatively short. Garza eventually takes a powder after a long time of Andrade trying to essentially big-time the Young Buck, calling rank and essentially just saying, look, you do the work, I won't be involved. Andrade takes the chokeslam, Andrade takes the pin, Angel Garza takes a powder. This is undoubtedly all leading into a big push for Angel Garza. He's been very heavily featured for several months now, essentially since he originally debuted on Raw due to Andrade being, shall we say, unavailable. The company has very high faith in Garza and we are going to see a lot of him in future. Personally, I'm excited for that because I believe he is an incredibly talented young man. MVP faces Apollo Crews in, for some reason, a non-title match, which does sort of give away the ending. Just before this, in a backstage segment, Apollo Crews is backed up by Cedric Alexander and Ricochet. Rare to see a sighting, but we indeed do, and it is nice to have that sort of situation. Very happy with that. R-Truth engages with them briefly, but they move on pretty quickly, and apparently none of them won the 24/7 championship. If no one wants the title, why is it on TV? The match itself is quite good. Lashley, much like Billy Kay earlier, is a nuisance on the outside, providing distractions to Apollo Crews, but both men are able to show what they are capable of. MVP's been very impressive since he came back, not just on the microphone, but also in his time in the ring. He picks his moments carefully to get involved, but when he does make a big impact, and he won the match here with a perfect plex. MVP winning a match on Raw in 2020. Who'd have thunk it? This is of course all leading to Lashley winning that United States Championship, or at least challenging for it, and I am slightly worried for Apollo Crews here given this loss. It doesn't look great for him, and I can't see him beating Bobby Lashley. That said, he does have backup now. Bobby Lashley would attack Apollo Crews after the match. Despite Crews losing, he would be interrupted in his interruption attack by Ricochet and Cedric Alexander. A end result of this is an impromptu match between Lashley and Ricochet, which I think is an incredibly good match. Very solid, they did extremely well in a very short amount of time. Lashley was made to look dominant, however Ricochet was still able to get everything in. Lashley sold hard for him, and then when it mattered, hulked up, essentially. Lashley also seemed to get a pretty big cut on the ear, and by the end, he was covered in blood and full Nelsoning people. That's a good look from a very tough man. This is also one of the many reasons that I'm glad Lashley no longer wears that headband. For our main event of the evening, it is Drew McIntyre teaming with Asuka to take on Dolph Ziggler and Sasha Banks. This could not fail. It really couldn't. This is the sort of main event you do stay up for. And all four delivered brilliantly. Everyone got their moment to shine in the ring, and a lot of people got a moment to shine outside of the ring. Bayley was on commentary, keeping us invested, but also showing some genuine concern in her that Sasha might not come out the winner. Sasha got in Drew McIntyre's face a couple of times. Dolph Ziggler, as we've come to expect of Dolph Ziggler, got beat up a lot and looked great doing it. That man gives back in every single opportunity that he has, and I have nothing but respect for him. End result being Asuka and Sasha Banks in the ring. This ended up as clean as you like. There was a lot of roll throughs, a lot of counters, both women well known for this, some submission moves, but eventually Sasha is able to get a leverage pin and get the victory after rolling out of an attempted Asuka lock. That is a very good look going into their match at Extreme Rules Horror Show, and to be honest, this is a match that I was already the most excited for, but I'm even more excited now because these two have such a genuine chemistry, and I feel I say that about Asuka all the time. Asuka has great chemistry with all four horsewomen, and in fact, in my opinion, has had the best match with Alexa Bliss of Alexa Bliss's career so far when they faced in Raw quite a long time ago now, not long after Asuka first debuted. I personally feel that was Alexa Bliss's best match as well. We have to give immense credit to Asuka for the work she's been able to do, and immense credit to Sasha Banks, who not only was able to provide on her end just as well, but also able to come up with creative, different, innovative ways to finish a match, really boost herself up, and she's on a tremendous winning streak right now. She fully deserves this match at Extreme Rules, and in addition to this, of course, she will be facing Io Shirai in NXT, where we can expect 20-25 minutes of excellence as well. I've been waiting a long time for this match. Sasha Banks, MVP of WWE right now. Speaking personally, I can't help but value this particular installment of Raw highly. I thought they delivered in every possible aspect and were able to create compelling storylines that made me more interested in the pay-per-view coming up. The fact that Drew McIntyre is allowing Dolph Ziggler to pick his own stipulation, that is exciting to me. My hope is some sort of ladder match, but I don't know how that fits with the horror show aesthetic that they're going for. With that, as well as the return to the swamp for Braun and Bray, which I suspect will be the main event of the evening, I do feel that Extreme Rules is starting to look like an extremely good pay-per-view. What we will see on SmackDown is a challenger lined up for Bayley, which means that most of your major titles are going to be involved and defended. What we need to see next is something for AJ Styles. Possibly the Drew Gulak match will be pushed back to the pay-per-view. That is my hope there. Meanwhile, the United States Championship looks like it's going to be Lashley against Apollo Crews. All we are lacking then is tag team matches. However, it also looks like we're going to get the Street Profits versus Andrade and Garza, as well as, of course, the New Day versus Cesaro and Nakamura. This is going to have a Night of Champions feel to it with all the championships on the line. I feel they're building this fantastically in a way that it might just outstrip SummerSlam unless certain big names such as Charlotte Flair or Brock Lesnar, or in fact Roman Reigns, are able to return for SummerSlam. We'll have to see what happens next leading into that. My Twitter poll for Monday Night Raw had a slightly lower opinion of Raw than I do myself, with a 46% good rating and after that a 27% okay rating. Personally, I was leaning more towards good, great. However, I respect the Twitter poll that I put out, and I like to put that in there so that people know what the fans are thinking as well as what I'm thinking. This has been the Raw Review. Thank you very much for watching, for clicking like. I have been Tom Colahue, and thank you for joining me.